All right, welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and today we're going to be talking about the new kickoff return rules, whether or not that has anything to do with the Rams, what it could lead to. Let's dive into it. Before we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow me on all social media at JK Bogan. Let's get into it. So, the Rams are probably going to need a new return man after these new kick return rules have come out. They returned 11 kicks last year. The new rules are going to push for more returning. I think really what it comes down to is they had the lowest kickoff return rate in NFL history in 2023. So the league wants to change that while also keeping in mind player safety. So I'm not going to get into how I feel about this. I have mixed feelings. If you guys watched any of the XFL, and I think also the USFL had it as well, then you definitely have seen this new style before. Basically, what happens is the kicking team is going to kick off from its 35-yard line. 10 members of the kicking team will line up on the receiving team's 40-yard line. And from that point, they cannot move until the ball is caught by the receiving team. So that's a little bit of an interesting thing there. A minimum of 9 members of the receiving team will line up between the 30 and 35 yard lines. So that's something to keep in mind as well. It's going to be different. I mean, that's really what we're looking at here. Play begins when the ball is either caught or hits the ground in the landing zone. The landing zone is basically in between the 20-yard line and the goal line. So that's, just to kind of explain that. Now it can be returned from the end zone as well, but that's also the thing there. Any kick that hits in the landing zone must be returned. So what we saw last year, Austin Trammell, it went viral essentially because Pat McAfee made a huge deal about it. Austin Trammell had a fair catch at the 11-yard line. And because of the fair catch rules last year, it basically just acted as a touchback. That is not the case anymore. You have to return it. You can't just do a fair catch inside the 20. Any kick that bounces from the landing zone, which is the 0 to 20-yard line, into the end zone must be returned or downed by the receiving team for a touchback and possession at its 20-yard line. So that's something to keep in mind there. They are trying to kind of like force these returns. I'm not going to lie to you. If a kick fails to reach the 20-yard line, the receiving team takes possession at its 40-yard line. So that's the thing. If a kick does not get to the landing zone, then this is automatically going to be at the 40-yard line. It's basically a penalty, like what we've seen before. So you can't just kick it. Obviously, if you're doing an onside kick, this is different. But if you're doing a regular kick, you can't just kick it at the 22-yard line, have them come up and get it. It doesn't work that way. You do give up 20 yards on that. If the ball enters the end zone in the air, the receiving team can return it or down it and take possession at its 35-yard line. So again, this is really to put an emphasis on kickers not just kicking out of the back of the end zone, because now if the ball enters the end zone in the air, doesn't bounce, but enters the end zone in the air, the receiving team can return it, but there's no point because the possession is going to be taken at the 35-yard line. So definitely kind of an emphasis on, I think, offense. I think this really helps out the offense, but an emphasis on returning kicks. If the ball goes out of bounds, the receiving team takes the possession at its 40-yard line. So same deal as originally, the penalty, everything. There are no fair catches. Onside kicks are permitted only in the fourth quarter. So that's an interesting new thing there. And they set up and landing zones do not change after penalties or a safety. Only spot where the ball is kicked changes. So they will remain the same. Really interesting rules that kind of change, really everything about what you know about returns. I just have mixed feelings. There's a lot here. It's kind of confusing. We'll get into it. Before we do, though, a word from our sponsor, of course, as always, Mantis Sleep, which, of course, if you would like to make a Mantis Sleep purchase and get 10% off it, you can use my promo code JKBogan. You've seen before, I have highly touted the Mantis Sleep sound mask. It connects to your phone. It has 20 plus hours of battery life, wireless, talk about, obviously all masks are blackout, C-shaped eye cups, great for sleeping on your side. But what you should know is that there are other, sleep options, other, sleep mask options, whether, we're talking about the Pro, which doesn't have the sound mask. You're talking about the Silk. You're talking about the Cold, the iPads. And then, of course, you have the heated eye cups as well. If you want to check any of that, you can use my promo code JKBogan and get 10% off. The link is in the description. Head on over to mantisleep.com and just take a gander. I mean, I honestly didn't think I'd ever wear a sleep mask, and now all of a sudden I'm wearing them every night. So definitely check that out. Now back to the show. All right. So folks, really this is confusing, but what I wanted to make a video on it because, I mean, it's important news. They're changing the kickoffs for good. The Rams need a new returner, okay? I like Austin Trammell. I thought he did some good things. Not in the return game, though. Was near the bottom in kick return yards, punt return yards per attempt. They need a kick returner, okay? Really, that's what this new rule is pushing. They want you to return the kicks, and I think this gives guys opportunities that may or may not have had draftable grades. But going into this draft, not really talking about free agency, although we just saw right after this was announced, Cordarrelle Patterson signed a 2-year deal with the Steelers. They know what they're doing there. The Rams have an in-house option, Xavier Smith, so we'll keep an eye on him. There are also, potentially you could use a guy like Tutu Atwell if they don't trade him away. You could use a guy like Demarcus Robinson. We'll see, because the thing that's fascinating about this is now you have guys returning inside the 20-yard line, okay? So there's the potential they're going to have more yards than usual. At the same time, players can't move, right? The kicking team can't move from the 40 until the ball is received or the ball hits the ground. That is part of the new rule. And since it's so penalized if you kick it out of the back of the end zone, we are going to see kickoffs every single kickoff. Like, there's going to be a return. So with that said, I took, the liberty of looking up some of the best punt and kick returners in the game in college this past year. And I wanted to bring up kick returners first. We'll talk about punt returners and why I think that this change in rule could actually add more value for punt returners, where they could actually end up working as kick returners. Maybe they haven't in the past. This really does allow an opportunity. I mean, this is legitimately not just a, position, some teams decide they want a returner. Some teams don't care. This really changes the game where you need a legitimate return man. So looking at kick return, there's a guy who you will be hearing about a lot on this channel, 5'9" wide receiver out of Virginia. I'm a big fan of Malik Washington. Just absolutely stands out on tape. We'll probably have a separate solo video on him breaking his game down, but he had 13 returns for 274 yards this year. I think already when you talk about a player of his caliber, he has a lot of talent. He could be a starting receiver in the NFL. Now you add this whole kick return thing, being one of the better returners in the country. I think there's a chance that he could go higher, and I think there's a chance now that maybe these 5'8", 5'9", 5'7" receivers that typically go way late in the draft are going to go higher because of that ability, because they now offer so much value in the return game. So keep an eye on Malik Washington. I love him for the Rams if they decide to move on from Tutu Atwell but still want that similar stature and that type of receiver. Elijah Badger from Arizona State, 20 returns for 585 yards. This was one of the better returners in the country. Actually, one could argue he might have been the best returner in the country. Whether Badger gets drafted or not, the Rams are always interested in these UDFAs. They're always interested in signing a boatload of receivers to compete. They've found guys like, Lance McCutcheon in the past. They've found guys like Kadero Hodge. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that going after, again, like a Paul McRoberts and Nelson Spruce, these wide receivers that they sign as college free agents, it's not out of the realm of possibility they can work their way into becoming legitimate players on this roster. So look out for Elijah Badger. Coming in next on the kick return list, I have a punt return list as well. Jalen Gill out of Fresno State, 25 returns for 515 yards. Again, quality guy. These are good numbers. Aside from whether or not Gill gets drafted, another one to look out in college free agency. And then Kalen Horton, who led the country in receiving return yards from, of course, kick return yards, 699 on 33 returns out of North Texas, is another player to look out for. The reason I'm bringing these guys up is because you're going to hear the first two names in the punt return section, and you'll be like, you know who they are. The point I'm making here is that now maybe these guys aren't on your radar, but now because of these new rules, they could be on your radar. They could be on the Rams' radar. They could be on any team's radar. So that's something to keep in mind. For punt returners, and we don't know how this is going to translate. Some punt returners simply cannot work as kick returners, and it is what it is. However, I don't know if that's going to be the case anymore. This is a completely different style of kick returning. They've really changed everything, and I don't feel like enough people are talking about this because, quite honestly, it is so damn confusing. You used to just know football, things that are going on, different rules and stuff off the top of your head. I'm going to have to think about this on game day. Like, I'm going to have to remind myself kicking out of the back of the end zone is going to be at the 35-yard line, kicking out of bounds or not getting it to the 20 is going to be at the 40. Like, I'm going to have to remember this stuff, and so will you. But with that said, we don't know how well punt returners are going to translate to this version of kickoffs. We don't even have this in college. This has only shown up in the spring leagues, XFL and USFL. So this will be fascinating. With that said, Xavier Worthy, who is the fastest player in NFL history according to the 40 time, did break the record out of Texas, 20 returns for 360 yards, which is the most in college, and a touchdown as a punt returner. Could he work as a kick returner? Could that force him even higher into the first round? I think he's definitely going to be in the first round. We saw John Ross get drafted in the first round. I think he's way better than Ross was as a prospect, and he's the fastest player in combine history. So that's worth mentioning. Keep an eye on Xavier Worthy. Could the Rams go after him? I don't know. It might be a little too early, but you never know. Keon Coleman is the next one out of Florida State. Didn't have a blazing 40 time, but he was a good returner this year as a punt returner. 24 returns for 302 yards. Can he work as a kick returner? That is the question. But again, another name to look out for. D. Williams out of Tennessee did both. Punt return and kick return. Mainly a punt returner, though. 19 returns for 266 yards and a touchdown. And last but not least, Aeneas Smith from Texas A&M. 20 returns for 285 yards and a touchdown. Why did I even make this video? I made it because this is a bigger issue than people realize, okay? Changing the whole return ecosystem really puts a team like the Rams, who were, I believe, 38th out of all football teams. We're including spring league teams and NFL teams. So XFL, USFL, and the NFL. They were 38th, I believe, is what I saw in return efficiency rating. I believe it was. The Rams don't care about returning kickoffs. They haven't cared. Not since Pharaoh Cooper, right? You could argue JoJo Natson, but I would say Pharaoh Cooper. They have to start caring. That's what this video is about. And so there are a lot of guys in college that are coming into this draft that do care about returning, that could help your team out. There are guys that you can get as college free agents. There are guys that you can get as draft picks. And there are guys that you could probably find in free agency that I personally am not going to go through because I am not going to waste your time talking about guys that are very unlikely to be signed by the Rams. The fact of the matter is this. If the Rams did not care before, which it clearly shows they did not care before and did not take seriously before kick returns. Now they will. This is a huge opportunity, and really you're backed into a corner to return kicks in general, okay? You're also backed into a corner to actually give these guys opportunity to return kicks. No longer can you kick it out of the back of the end zone. So that's another thing. Guys that have big legs, maybe somebody like Ethan Evans, that's going to be a little too much. He's going to have to calm down and kicking out of the back of the end zone. He's got a great leg. So we'll see what ends up happening. But what are your thoughts on all this? A lot to take in. And honestly, I'm still processing it. So let me know. Honestly, again, mixed feelings. I can't really decide whether or not I like it or don't like it. I think I just have kind of mixed feelings about it. But those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And also be sure to follow me on all social media at JKBogan. And I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys take care. Later, folks. Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.